the Talkin Man with a bow tie boy. I have my special friend and special guest, the High Sheriff, Scott Nichols. Scott, you haven't been on in a while.
It's been a while. I think it's been since last year in a way, so yeah.
You feeling good?
Feeling good.
Good, that's good. You look as ugly as hell. So.
Yeah, that's what that keeps me going.
That's good. So it's time for a little update. And we'll come back to updating the department a little bit, but I think people are really interested, obviously, with what happened in Texas. So we might talk a little bit about that. And you shared with me before that we actually had an incident in Maine a couple years ago that people probably don't know about. I didn't know about it, and maybe we can transition from what happened there to where we are today.
Okay, so what we're talking about is active shooter, of course, and it's a big buzzword today, especially because of the tragedy down there in Texas. And so in Maine, before Columbine even took place, we had an incident take place in Gardner. I can't remember what year it was. I was on the state police tactical team at the time, and I think it was early 90s. And we had an incident where a young person came into the school and fired a rifle, and of course started general panic amongst everybody, and everybody was running for the exits and running out windows, jumping out. They're just escaping everywhere. Nobody had ever been trained in this sort of situation. We arrived as a team, set up the standard perimeter type of thing, and got hostage negotiators on by. Definitely not the model that we deal with today, but this, again, like I said, was pre-Columbine.
You were dealing with more like an incident, like somebody taking a hostage. They were semi-rational in the sense they would carry out a conversation.
Right.
They weren't shooting. So you set up the perimeter. It's like a hazardous waste incident.
Exactly.
Set up an incident command post. You have your other people with their assignments, and then in that case you'd be having a conversation. Hopefully,
hostage negotiators involved, the whole kit and caboodle.
Because in most cases, those guys aren't shooting actively. They're saying, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get a message out.
Right.
And they still may end in a tragedy, but at least you have time to have a conversation.
Exactly. And the PS to that story, it turned out well. The person surrendered and that. But again, it just highlights that, we've actually had this happen in Maine. And so after Columbine, across the country came this effort to standardize police response to active shooters. Now, what's an active shooter? An active shooter is someone who goes into a large environment, be it a school, be it a shopping mall or a church or whatever, and they just start shooting. And the thought process behind it is, for every second they're there, people are either getting injured or killed. And so you need to get there quickly and respond quickly. And so the genesis of how law enforcement responded over the years started from, like I described earlier, the incident in Gardner where we set up the perimeter and all this stuff, to establishing, waiting for 2 or 3 other guys to show up and form a team and going together and going towards the sound of gunfire. And it evolved to today's way of thinking today, where, especially in a rural application like Franklin County, there's only probably going to be, if you're in a rural out beyond Farmington, Wilton, and Jay, you've only got one officer out there, covering maybe 20, 30 miles by themselves. They're going to be the first ones. And it's going to be incumbent upon that individual to stop the threat. That's right, to enter the school and stop the threat. Now, there's all sorts of obstacles involved today. Like today, schools are pretty much semi-hardened, at least. As long as they adhere to protocols that are being presented out there, schools locked down. You come to a school, you're supposed to hit the buzzer, they're supposed to let you in. And that was supposed to have gone on in Texas also, but apparently it didn't happen, or a door was left unsecure, or something. Some of the problems we have as law enforcement is there's so many schools, and we arrive, and in a critical incident like that, how are you getting in if the doors are locked?
Yeah.
What are you going to use for a tool to crash through a window to get in? And so these are some issues that still need to be resolved. And so with that in mind, one of my supervisors, Ryan Close, excellent sergeant, he has been working with the Healthy Community Coalition here in Farmington, Leanne Lavoie and her team, because they are expert grant writers, and they sat down and they helped us draft a grant. It's a COPS Office School Violence Prevention Program.
Wow.
And so it basically provides evidence-based school safety programs and technology focused, I'm reading off my script here, focusing on the improving measures necessary to improve school safety. And so what that grant will do is it will provide money to all the school districts, from Jay to Eustis. And using that money, we're hoping to improve communications. Now, why do we need to improve communications? Well, quite frankly, if an officer shows up to a school, even in Jay, they get out of their cruiser, now they're down to a 5-watt radio on their shoulder that they got to use to communicate with, and they may or may not be able to reach out to dispatch to keep people informed of what's going on. And that's especially true in the rural areas. Mount Auburn High School, you're lucky to have communication with the current system we have, in Eustis, in Rangeley, and all those places. So, one, we're looking to improve communications at the various school districts throughout the county. That may mean putting up repeaters on every school. So when an officer gets there, they can just jump on the radio, they can repeat right down to dispatch so everybody hears what's going on.
Yeah. Should that be like a little antenna on the roof or something?
Exactly right. And it also may provide radios for teachers within the school so they can communicate directly without having to dial 911 or jump on their cell phone, so they can hear what's going on and give them a sense of overall scene, right? So communications is always a big factor. That's the one thing you lose when you have a critical incident, is the ability to communicate. Because it's like battle. You go to battle and the first thing you lose is the fog of war. It comes in and just creates mayhem. So we're hoping to improve communications. 2, we're hoping to improve access. Now, as I said earlier, one of the biggest problems we have in this county, of course, is if something occurred, all law enforcement, regardless of who they work for, are responding to this situation. And how do you get into the school? Because right now, most of the schools are
locked.
They're locked.
Yeah.
And if they're hunkered down somewhere, they're not going to be able to let you in. So you either got to break and rake the windows open with an axe or something like that, a Halligan tool, or ideally, what we'd like to have is one card that would be issued to every law enforcement officer they carry in their cruiser. So regardless, from it's J or all the way up to Eustis, we can go and swipe a key card and gain entrance and get into the building without
a skeleton card.
Exactly.
It's a skeleton key concept.
A universal card for access to get inside, so we wouldn't be delayed by locked doors or such like that. And so that would be an expensive proposition too, but it's entirely necessary. This grant, we're looking at, well over $600,000.
Wow.
I think it's about $600,000 limit we have on it. But $600,000 will go a long way. It would also go towards training, tabletop exercises with the various schools, determining where's the best places when you do have a critical incident such as that. Where are you going to set your staging area at? Where is your reunification area going to be located at, so that parents can be brought to the kids? What's going to be the plan for bringing kids from that school to that reunification area? How are we going to handle notification with the press? Where are we going to keep them? And so all of these issues, first response issues as well, training, triage, all this stuff needs to be gamed out and talked about. So there's no guessing when you get there. You're not just kind of winging it. You have it's almost like playing football. You have a game book.
It's like a hazmat incident.
That's right.
You do all your planning, and think a leap when the explosion took place. They all went behind that I believe that was their muster point, was behind that little building there. So they all went there to take attendance to find out who was there, and that actually ended up protecting them.
Right.
But the same thing we had at the mill. We had all our evacuation routes. We knew where we were going to go. You had a muster point, and whoever was the captain at that muster point, whoever took charge when they got there, took attendance, so we knew who was out. And then we had a triage point, and then we had an incident command point. So the only difference, I think, what I'm hearing is that you're entering.
We're going.
You're going. You're
Yeah.
not waiting for anybody to show up. You're going. That guy or that girl that shows up is going in.
Yeah.
And the support will come in. Those places will create after he enters or she enters, most likely.
Exactly. Yes, and it's crucial. You know, I'm not going to second guess what happened down there in Texas, but anybody who puts on a badge and takes this job already knows there's an inherent liability to the job. And our job is to protect the public. And in an incident like that, you don't have time to think. You just have to go. And you have to, bail out your cruiser, let them know you're there, and go. But at the same time, it's incumbent upon, leadership to ensure that the troops that go in, and, especially my troops, they are equipped properly to respond to that threat. So we have to make sure that they all have the proper rifles available, because hallways are 100 to 200 yards long in some of these schools, right? You're not going to do this with a handgun. We want to make sure that they have the proper defensive equipment, like the proper vest. You probably noticed that some of my deputies, and most of my deputies now, all wear an exterior bullet-resistant vest that also has an armor plate in there to stop rifle fire. We also have lights that are actually attached to our vests now that our friends at Origin were kind enough to help as far as sewing on security straps and things like that, so we can attach these lights. And the purpose of them is so you always have a light available. Just tap the switch and you got something that lights up, because you never know. Things go down. It's always good to have redundancy systems. And they also you hit it, blink blue light. So if someone sees if another responding officer comes in after the fact and sees a shadow of a person down the road, and they got a light blinking, they can identify friend from foe, right? All these little things that you really don't think about, but you need to think about and you need to plan for and game for. Providing Halligan tools to everybody, this type of thing that the fire department uses to break and rake, just in case you get inside a building and you got a locked school room where this perpetrator may be in. You need to get inside there. So there's a myriad of challenges involved with this type of response, and it's a heavy burden upon the officer.
I can't imagine.
Oh, well, just think about the mindset that's going to be, you need to have involved.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
That's why we train our guys pretty hard out there in the fall. We take them out and we do a lot of strenuous training with their service rifles, moving drills and that sort of thing, so that when they respond to an incident such as this, if they ever had to, God forbid, they would just go to training and just react to training and not think about the dangers. Just go and do, and react to whatever happens after that. But their first, their initial mindset, their initial thoughts should be always to stop the threat.
Scott, go back to the card for a minute. I just thought it as you talked about the flashlight. That's not a passive system? Isn't that generated by the electricity in the building?
Yes.
So if somebody flew around with the electricity, you would have to have that tool to break the window to get in.
You would have to have that tool. Most schools have a redundancy system built in with a generator or something, and I would hope that would still be available. But worst case scenario, they'll have to have this tool available too. So since the new budget is now in place, July 1, amen.
Hey, it's today.
It's today. And so we'll be looking at purchasing these items that we need to get, for these poor guys that have so much equipment in their trucks as it is right now. You try to think of everything, and when you are in rural law enforcement, you have to be prepared for as much as you can. And so I want to add one more item to their list of stuff to carry with them. But hey, I have the same stuff too. I carry it too.
You have to.
You have to.
You could be the first guy.
I could very well be the first guy.
I mean, And Maine has been very fortunate. I personally believe it has to do a little bit with open carry, because I believe that if you're a bad guy and you're thinking about doing something in the Walmart parking lot, you never know who's going to be in the Walmart park, and it's already happened.
It's already happened.
It's already
That's
happened.
Right. Yeah.
I don't carry because you also have to have the mindset that if you carry, you're going to use it.
Yeah.
And I don't want that burden on my conscience.
No.
I don't want to look cool,
Yeah.
but I know that I'm going to have to take that out and have to point it at somebody. I'm not going there. So I'd make that decision. But the fact that we have open carry, and there are a lot of people who do, it's a constitutional right.
Yep.
And I believe that defers or deters, that's the word,
right.
People from thinking about doing that, because they may find out they don't have to wait for the police to be there.
That's true. I mean, we discussed that. As you know, we do those once a month trainings at the Wilton Fishing Game, and we bring in a lot of people who are taking handgun safety courses, our handgun safety course, just to learn how to safely handle their weapons. But mindset's a lot of that we talk about too. And I try to stress the importance that if you're going to carry this, you have to be aware of the legalities involved, the civil repercussions involved, and we talk about it all. And hopefully by the time they leave there, well, I know they do, because the reactions we get at the end of each class is pretty positive. That their eyes are opened.
You do that once a month?
We do it once a month. We take the summer off, because if we don't, our wives would kill us. But myself and Chief Deputy Lowell teach it, and we're starting our next class up and getting it in October.
So if somebody wants to know about that class, they can go to the county sheriff phone number.
Yeah, they can go to the phone number right there.
Yeah,
give us a call. We'll hook them up with Sharon Bothworth. She's the lady from the Wilton Fishing Game that assists us with all those classes. But yeah, it's a huge responsibility. It's nothing that somebody should take lightly.
Does it run all day long?
No, it's a pretty small 5-hour course that we take. And
I may sign up for it again.
Yeah, it's informational. It's safety. We have a lot of mostly novice shooters, people who literally just purchased their first firearm in their life, and they come in and we teach them everything about it from A to Z, how to carry, how to make it safe. We talk about how to shoot the thing accurately, cleaning, and we go over drills, trigger pull, sight picture, sight alarm. The whole it's a pretty. It kind of represents the first 4 or 5 hours of the course we teach law enforcement at the academy. It's an introduction to weapon systems, and so that's what we teach.
So I got us off the subject. So you'll actually train on this scenario, and you'll train at each of the school systems or within each school district.
Once we receive the grant, and I hope we do, we've got buy-in from every police department in Franklin County. Everybody said they're going to support it. Sergeant Close has met with all the school administrative district people, and they're in support of it as well. So we have that buy-in that was needed in order to submit the grant. So the grant has been submitted. So now it's just a waiting game just to see when we're going to get it. And once we have it, we had to give them a grocery list, basically, of what we're proposing to spend it on and that sort of thing. So they have that as well. So we're kind of excited about it, and we just hope it goes through.
Well, I hope so. I mean, because we are rural, and it makes it a whole different ball game. And eventually you're all going to get there. But it could be you, it could be another officer that's riding by and gets the call and has to respond. And then I assume you'll do some kind of training or scoping out of each school.
Exactly.
You have to.
That's going to be part of the gaming process. The tabletops and that sort of thing. The term to establish that playbook.
Yeah.
As we talked about earlier, as far as how we're responding, what to do after the initial response, how we're setting up all the different disciplines that are needed during that response. Myself and Dave St. Laurent just recently attended what do they call it here? There was it was an active shooter course that was put on in Skowhegan. It was put on by the NEM system. It's a federal course, and it was a 3-day training that we responded to, which highlighted all this stuff. It was pretty comprehensive. From day 1 to day 3, they put you through it took like, it was all computer-based, and so we had about 30 students in this class, and essentially it talked about everything we've been discussing: initial response, setting up your staging areas, incident command, all that we all use anyways, but I kind of did it in a hands-on application, utilizing the computer. So, for example, if you're the initial officer, you go to a certain deck of computers, and you and 3 or 4 other people were on this computer, and it was almost like a game.
Really?
And you responded to the scene, and they would plug in the scenarios, and you had to respond to the different scenarios. So it started off first as a simple active shooter thing, and advanced to complex multiple area responses, and how to we had firefighters there with us, we had EMTs there, we had dispatchers, and so it was good that they also integrated those disciplines with the same training, not just police officers. And I learned some new things that I hadn't considered before, so it was pretty good. And so St. Laurent and I are going to be training that with our people as well, talking about that in future training. So it's, the funny part is, we had this stuff planned before Texas.
Yeah.
And all Texas basically did was come in and put a big exclamation point on it and say, you got to do this.
Yeah, it did. There's no question about that. And I don't second guess them. I wasn't there.
Right.
But what I can see is that they didn't respond the way they should have.
It doesn't appear to. I like I said, I wasn't there either. But just seeing what I've seen on TV like everybody else, I'd be embarrassed if I was the person in charge of the scene.
You can tell the one chief, wherever he is very agitated and aggravated about what's going on. So real quick, what else is going on? We'll say we got a special thing that's going to happen after another interview. So why don't you tell us about that a little bit, Scott? That'll lead us into the 2 wonderful ladies that are going to come in and talk to us next.
Well, yes. As a matter of fact, we have been working with. Well, let me just back up a little bit. So there's no question that Franklin County has a drug issue. And what we've been seeing, more and more overdoses. I mean, we're responding to them, if not daily, almost every other day.
Wow.
To these drug overdoses. We just had an unfortunate death of a 14-year-old up north, and a 12-year-old who didn't pass away. So we're seeing this stuff. And kids are getting this stuff. Drugs today, the dealers are mixing fentanyl into everything, even marijuana. They're mixing it into marijuana. And so if you think you're sitting there and you're going to just take a toke off a joint, and next thing you know, you're barely alive. So we're running into this situation more and more. And we have a lot of people out there who are addicts, some who want help. We have a lot of people out there who don't want help. I had a conversation with one of my sergeants this morning, and we were talking about, different people that we deal with continuously out there. And they were highlighting one who stated that they didn't want to. We were trying to get them to work with us so we could identify who their dealer was, because they've been Narcaned, and they don't want to cooperate because they don't want to stop using their drugs.
Wow.
And they won't give up their dealer because, as they said, druggies need their dealers.
Yeah.
But there are people out there who do want help. And so for the first time in a long time, we've been working with an options lady who's been actually coming to the sheriff's office and actually going on patrol with some of our guys. Kat Johnson, she's new to us in a way, so this year, and it's been exciting to see her integrated with us. She's working with us, with Farmington PD as well. I assume with all the other PDs too. She's all over the place. And what we try to do with her is find these people who we think may want help, give them to her, and she does her magic. I can't articulate all what they do. They'll have to explain that themselves. Yeah. And I just met last week a lady by the name of Stacy Austin. She works for Kennebec Behavioral Recovery. She's a Kennebec Behavioral Recovery Coach Coordinator. That's a lot of terms, but she works over in Somerset County. But they're starting to move into Franklin County as well. And she will work with Kat to help set up, hopefully, recovery coaches for those folks that are looking for help. And our thought process is, if you think about the amount of resources, I could give you a list of a dozen people or more who we visit weekly, if not multiple times in a weekend. And it's all because of their drug use. They're involved in domestic violence. They're involved in all sorts of things, mostly DV violence. And if we can get these people off the drugs, that reduces our interaction with them, reduces having to arrest these folks and bring them to jail. If we can get them away from this stuff and hopefully change, offer them the opportunity to get clean, that actually will save money down the road. I mean, I hate to make it about dollars and cents, but it's a real thing. It's a real thing.
It's like what they always say: 20% of the 100%, 20% of the problem that costs you the most, and the rest of it are minor.
Yeah,
and that's what you're dealing with, and it does save money, but it saves lives and it saves people that can be useful in helping people out if they can do that.
Yeah.
I think it's. And it's terrible because it's not just they need the money for the drugs. So what do they have to do? They got to go steal something.
Commit crimes.
So they steal something, and if they can't get it and they start to come down, they go beat up the person they're with. So it's just this vicious cycle they get into. We talked about this way back when I was in the legislature of the guys getting out of jail even that want help but had no place to turn to go to get help.
Right.
Sounds like this will be a place for them to go to get help if they want to clean up.
Well, it's going to be a start, and it's going to be a good start. And I'm excited about it, and I'm excited about the opportunity to have this program get set in Franklin County and really take off. And I'm hoping that people will take advantage of it. We get calls from family members all the time wanting us to do welfare checks on somebody because they haven't heard from them in a couple of days, and we get there and we find out that they've been high for 2 or 3 days and passed out or whatever they've been doing. And their family, of course, is worried, but they're adults, It's not like the juveniles. So they have the right to do whatever they're going to do, but at the same time, their rights are really interfering with public safety. We're spending I've never seen it. I mean, I started law enforcement, this 1984. And back then, we never dealt with this stuff.
No, I know.
We didn't deal with this stuff in the 90s. Yeah. But these days, our officers, they go out there and they're doing 2 primary jobs. They're going out there and dealing with people who are wanting to commit suicide or having suicidal ideation, or they're dealing with people who are drugged up. And, we've had people die. You get there and you find them with the needle still hanging in their arm. The minute they stuck it in there,
wow,
it happens that quick.
Wow. Scott, will you come back on the show again?
Oh, always.
Oh, it's always good to have you here.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was a great show. Thank you very
much. You're welcome.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Talkin' Maine.